Welcome back to another edition of Talking Ball. This is our fourth episode of the Duke Offseason podcast. And today, JD, I think we've got some news we can go over. The conference opponents in the ACC. We can talk about that. And I think as much for the audience as it is for you, JD, let's talk about these new guys coming in next season. We can spend some time maybe later on in the summer talking about what we expect from some of the returners, but let's spend some time talking about some of these new players. So JD, I'll leave this up to you. Of the new guys coming in, who do you want to start with?
Well, I think um, we should start obviously with the Boozer twins and the expectations there because we know we can't replace a Duke team that we were in love with, that was built to win a national championship. And had they not stumbled at the end against Houston, they were heading to the finals. And that team was created to give Cooper Flagg all the assistance he needed. There were just tremendous contributions coming from all over the place. But that was last year, and it's time to move on. So let's start with the Boozer twins. Let's start with the big guy.
Cameron Boozer. 6'9", just under 250. Boozer, he's good. Like, he's just a really good player. Some people, in terms of draft people, they've said he's got one of the highest floors in next year's class. I think that just gives you guys a little bit of context into how people view Cameron Boozer's basketball IQ, his fundamentals, his feel for the game. I think that's what that high floor statement says to me. A lot of these statements can apply for both boozers, but the other thing that will apply for both boozers is these guys won at a somewhat unprecedented level in high school. Like, they won state championship after state championship. They won. I'm forgetting the name of the national tournament. The year before, they won this past year, but the year before they lost to Cooper Flagg in Montverde. This year they won the whole thing. I think it's the Chipotle National Championship of high school, something like that. And they had the younger Richardson son, so it was not just the Boozer twins, but the year before it was both Richardson sons who were on that team. Now just one of them was remaining, Jackson, who looks just like his dad, Jason, with his leaping ability. And Cameron, I think the number one thing with Cameron, to me, that's going to be interesting for Duke, he has the ability when Duke wants to, in short stretches, for them to play him at center because he's 6'9", 250. Against certain matchups, they're going to be able to play smaller. And I think it also opens up the door for Malik to be more of a roamer, and then Boozer can guard the more traditional center because he'll have 25 pounds on Malik, and let Malik be out there getting steals, deflections, all sorts of havoc. So I think there's some versatility that Boozer provides defensively.
And to complement him, we think Patrick Gamba is going to start at center, but not obviously not that we've seen yet in terms of the aggression that Malawach had to say no, no, no. When he was doing his best
Dikembe
invitation. So, but one of the things that we always thought that Patrick Gamba had was the ability to actually have an offensive repertoire, which, if he is the starting center along with Cameron, it frees him up more to play offensively because, let's face it, Cameron is a load. I mean, that there he is going to take. I mean, at that size, 6'9", 250, it's going to take quite a matchup and help to try to stop him, and that's good news for Patrick Gamba. So I'm pretty excited about the two of them being paired up front.
And I'll save most of my commentary on Gangba for a later episode. But I think a lot of the things you just said about Cameron Boozer can be applied to Patrick Gangba. And we'll talk about that more as we get deeper into the summer. Now, Caden Boozer. Caden Boozer, guys, I've watched a couple of the Boozer twins high school games. He gives me Jones brother vibes. Like, he is just steady. He also played some of his best games offensively in the bigger games of that national high school tournament, where he had big performances. He hit a game winner, and then he had a big scoring performance in the last game, the championship game, for I'm forgetting the name of their high school team, but I digress. It's which is very reminiscent of Tyus Jones, who saved his biggest scoring performances for the biggest games. He's a great passing guard. He's very steady. He's about 6'4", so if I mean, I guess on last year's team he would be short, but realistically he fits the mold of size for Duke guards. He improved as a shooter. I think he's a solid defender, and like I said with Cameron, a smart basketball player, a guy with good feel for the game, and a guy who I expect to get better as the season goes along.
So a long way to go, but we saw what happened when last year Coach Shire put the ball in Caleb Foster's hands for the first, 10 games or so. And you and I, along with a lot of other people, said this guy cannot be our starting guard. And we were introduced to Sion James, who is going to make an NBA team very, very happy. He's just got that size and stability about him. So whether it's Caden or there was some, promise again to Caleb Foster to say it's yours to lose.
By the
But
way, sorry, finish your point.
but I like the idea of Gangba, the Boozer twins. I like that idea. I think all Duke fans could get really excited about that trio in there.
The only thing I was gonna say was you're gonna have a really hard time next season between Caden, Caleb, and Cameron. I imagine we're going to be doing
I
several
have a
post
hard
games, and you're going to be Caleb Boozer. No. So just forewarning our audience. That's all. All right, next newcomer. I think I'll take the lead on this one. Then we can kind of go back and forth here. I think the next guy for me to talk about, Dame Sar, who we talked about in last week's episode, coming over from Italy. I think the best thing for Dame Sar, and over the summer we're gonna go through the rest of the ACC, what happened with their roster construction, and then some of the other bigger schools that Duke is expected to play against. So we'll cover other rosters, but the reason I bring that up is there's a big surge of international players coming over to play college ball. And Dame Sar, he was in the Barcelona program since 2022. So he's been there for 3 years. And then this past season, he cracked the senior rotation. So this is not a guy who's been playing a high school basketball. He's been playing against grown
No,
men.
he's a pro.
He's a pro, and these guys are all pros really at this point with how much they're getting paid. And I think the point is he has, in some ways, a competitive advantage over these other guys who are coming in as high school freshmen, even the Boozer twins, who have played against top-notch competition. They haven't been playing against grown men. And I think that is going to help Dame Sar transition because, listen, it's going to take him time, having said that, to get used to playing college basketball. It's a very, very different setup than it is playing, in Spain. So there's that. He didn't play a ton of minutes in their rotation, 12 minutes per game in their league matches, and then about half of that in the Euro Cup. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But the fact that he was playing for them, I think, is a major positive, considering recent players to come over from, like, for example, we played against Kasparas Yakuchonis last season, who played for Illinois. He's going to be a lottery pick, potentially a top 10 pick. He was part of the Barcelona Academy. He didn't play for their senior team. So I think that says something about Dame Sar's ability. He may have been a little bit older, but still, I think it's a promising sign for Sar moving to Duke.
Jack, what is SAR's size?
That's a great question, JD, because I've seen him listed at 6'6". I saw it when they announced it. Someone listed him at 6'8". So let's just meet in the middle. Let's say he's 6'7". He's like a lanky kind of guy. He in the Duke podcast, he said he tries to take some from Shea. And if you look at his SGA, I guess to make sure everyone's on the same page here. If you look at his
The
body,
the people younger than me.
yes. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander for the people your age. Um, so if you look at his body type, though, there's a lot of similarities. And Sar said, he's a guy who wants to get downhill and attack the basket, which I think will be needed on this year's Duke team.
Complementing Boozer really well. That's why, as of May 28th, when we're recording, I like the pairing of the two of them up front. They're just different body types, and so I like that. Now, who do you have as the other starting forward?
I thought we were just talking about the new guys here.
Well, that depends because you and I have a slight difference of opinion of who will start at the other.
Well, I think it's Isaiah Evans. I'm not sure we have a
And
slight difference of opinion either.
I think it's Humania.
Oh, okay. So all right. Well, before I say anything, you've changed a little bit because the last time we went through this exercise, now the roster changed a little bit. We thought it was going to be Coward instead of Dame Sar, but the rest was mostly the same. We had the Boozers. You talked me into Caden. I had Foster initially. You talked me into that. I think rightfully so. And then Gangba. And at the time, we both had Isaiah Evans. So what's changed for you now that you're sliding in Hemenia?
Well, I guess I'm looking over the roster. If Gangba's at center and Cam and Dame are the forwards, then I may have to give Quick Draw. I guess I just wanted the length that we had last year. But Evans, I always forget, for all of the things about him, his defense improved towards the end. He's actually 6'6". He could be a really good complement to Caden. And,
Yes.
with Caden getting him the ball there. So I guess I'm back. We're sitting here. I'm back to Evans starting
All right.
and Humenya coming off the bench, and it's not so bad.
No, and could Hemenia end up being the starter? Absolutely. He's 6'8". He's a guy who can shoot the ball well. He can dribble, make plays for his teammates. I'm not so sure about him on the defensive end of the court, but that's not me saying I think he's a bad defender. It's literally me saying I just don't know. I haven't watched enough of him in high school to say. And so we know listen, Isaiah Evans didn't play the first handful of games in the big games because he didn't play well enough defensively. So we know how much Shire values that side of the ball. And I think for Hemenia, it's going to be important to establish himself there. And if anybody knows, what Hemenia looks like on that side of the court, drop it in the comments. And please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us. We're trying to grow this thing as much as we can. So much so that I can do this full time. That is the ultimate goal here.
Well, right. And now we're on the march to 1,800. So
1,700.
I thought we crossed 16 and we hit 17. Not yet?
Not yet. We're at about 1685 right now. 1685.
So we're not quite there yet. All right. So help us grow to 1,700, and then we can officially start the March preseason to 1,800, which will be great. So this presents an interesting issue with regard to Malik Brown, who we love. And no, he's not going to give us a lot of offense, except for the fact when he hit the 2 3-pointers, and like you're sitting there going like, I didn't know he could do that. But his defense and his ability for deflections and Hemenia, they're same height? Roughly. And so that's going to also, if Hemenia goes to the bench and Evans is starting alongside Caden, then you have you know what? This is fun to do on May 28th because even though it's hard to say goodbye to Cooper Flagg, I'm getting excited.
All right. Well, that's a great segue. Let's move into these conference opponents for next season.
Oh, just to round off the team. So there's Darren Harris, and then Sheffield.
The new guys.
Right. Sebastian Wilkins and a bunch of other guys. And the guy whose name I cannot pronounce, I'll just refer to him as O. And
Ufachukwu and Jack Scott, who I expect to basically fill the voids left by Mr. Begovic and Mr. Hubbard.
If he could only be like the last Jack that played for us. Australia.
Mr. Jack White. Listen, NBA champion Jack White. Member of those 2022? Yeah, 22 Denver Nuggets. So, all right. JD, I know you can't see this, but right now, everyone else can. We've got most of the ACC conference opponents. I had to cut off, I think it's Wake Forest and Virginia Tech. Couldn't figure out how to fit them on the screen. On the screen for everybody to see. So, Duke, which we'll focus on, but you can see pretty much everyone else. Home and away, they've got, so it's interesting. I think each team has a rival. So for Duke and North Carolina, that's obvious. For Miami, it's Florida State. For Cal, it's Stanford. Some of these make sense. For other teams, I think it's a little bit more difficult. Like, Virginia Tech, that makes sense. Syracuse and Pittsburgh, that makes sense. SMU and Louisville, I guess they had to figure something out. Notre Dame and Boston College, all right. NC State and
Irish.
Right. Well, I don't really care. NC State and Wake Forest. That makes sense. The other two teams in North Carolina, and then lastly Georgia Tech and Clemson. They had what was it, a triple overtime game last year, so I guess they are rivals now. Just not one I would think of. But listen, everyone's got to have a rival. Then they're going to rotate that second home and away team. So for Duke this year, it's going to be Louisville. And for Duke at home, the Blue Devils will have Boston College, Clemson, Georgia Tech, SMU, Syracuse, Virginia, and Wake Forest. And on the road, Cal, Florida State, NC State, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, Stanford, and Virginia Tech. From that lineup, JD, anything stick out to you? Want me to read it again? What are your
No,
thoughts?
I think first of all that having a home and home with a much improved Louisville team is a good thing. I like that we have conference games against. I think Louisville's going to be, if not eventually top 10, certainly within the second 10 of the AP ratings. So I like that we have a couple of conference games against quality team there. And UNC is a better team this year that a good recruiting class. And so I think that's good. And it's also just always fun to play him. But I think the one that's missing is Miami. And that's because, you know, my coach, Jay Lucas, is developing, and it would be nice for it to develop in a rivalry. Jay may not have gotten in all the recruits that he wanted to this year. I just see him a year or two away from being able to build that program through recruits, portal, all the different ways you can, bring players into your program. So that's just some early observations on the schedule.
I agree. I think Jay Lucas will bring back, to me, the Duke Miami rivalry because, as you know, for over a decade, yes, North Carolina, Virginia, those were big games for Duke. But for me personally, I always looked forward to the Miami and Florida State matchups. And the past couple of years, those haven't been quite the same, especially the last 2 years for Miami and the last kind of handful now for Florida State. So both of those programs have new young head coaches. It's interesting to me. So Coach Lucas, you said he didn't get all the recruits he wanted, and that's certainly true. But he certainly took one with him from the Blue Devils, or maybe not from the Blue Devils, but was originally committed to the Blue Devils with Mr. Shelton Henderson. That was a big get for him. But other than that, he brought on a lot of guys who played, power. Is it still Power 5? What we got? ACC, Pac-12, Pac-12's gone. That's why it's not Power 5. ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC. I guess maybe throw in the Big East for college
Big
basketball.
East, probably there's still 5.
So he brought in a lot of transfers from bigger name schools like Trey Donaldson, who played for Auburn last year, played for Michigan. He's a really steady point guard. Malik Renault, 3 really solid years at Indiana. And the one that was most interesting to me, Ernest Ude Jr. And the reason why it's interesting is because 2 years ago, Ude entered the transfer portal, and Duke was apparently one of the teams that was trying to get him. And he didn't end up coming to Duke then, but I just wonder if Jay Lucas was part of that coaching. He was part of that coaching staff. If he was one of the guys reaching out to him. Now he brings him over to Miami. So the point being, he brought in a lot of guys with not high major, but power conference experience. I think that's going to help him get off to a good start in year one. The only thing I question with some of the guys he brought in is just the overall shooting. But I think the defense and the size are going to be there right away for Miami.
And completely a non sequitur, but I was reading Kenny Smith's book, and here's it's not a complete about recruiting. He had narrowed from his stellar career at Archbishop Malloy in New York City, in Queens, where he was just all everything. He had narrowed it to 3 schools. We all know that he went to North Carolina, and part of the reason he went to North Carolina was so he could play with Michael Jordan. But one of the 3 schools was Duke. And I can't, the way that Kenny Smith, during his announcing and everything, the way that he's just, I can't take it. He was close, probably not that close, because it was like, I could play with Michael Jordan. That might be pretty good. And it turned out that they developed a really good friendship there, and the world would have been different. Kenny Smith as a Duke Blue. Just a recruiting story there, as you tell the one about Miami. So,
Well, listen, he spent, I don't know how many, was he a 4-year player in North Carolina?
at least 3. And he's not drafted. He's known for his play at Houston because they got a couple of championships there during
4-year
the
player.
little, where the gap occurs when Michael Jordan isn't playing. And then, as he likes to point out, the year that Jordan came back, the Bulls lose in the conference finals to Orlando, and Houston goes on and wins. And so that's where he made his he's an NBA champion. But just a little known fact there that he had narrowed his what schools did he want to play for? One of them was Duke. So every time he gets on the air and he can't say anything nice
Yeah,
about Duke.
yeah. Well, here's the thing though. He spent I get where you're going, but I gotta disagree here because he spent 4 years at North Carolina. It's like last time I think you made some sort of analogy to like somebody like I think it was Coward like we flirted with him, but he didn't end up being our girlfriend or something like that. And with
Sounds like something I'd say.
Yeah, and with Kenny, it's like, yeah, he may have talked to Duke for a couple of months, but he was in a 4-year relationship with North Carolina. And then technically, I mean, that's not even saying the full extent of it because then he's a North Carolina alumni. Was he part of? Let's see. I don't think he was a part of a title team there.
No.
Yeah, so it wasn't, but still, that's in his it's like not the same. It's not like being in the Brotherhood, but he's a North Carolina basketball player for the rest of his life. So you expect him to go out there and be like, yeah, I thought about going to Duke, so they're all right. He can't even say Duke. He can't say it.
No, he can't get it out of his mouth.
All right, we're a little bit off the
Yeah.
rails here. JD, any closing thoughts here on
No,
episode 4?
I think we can wrap it up. We're going to have plenty of time to keep seeing what happens with the team as it forms over the next 3 months. And we will keep our listeners posted with anything that we hear. And love that you, got a hold of the teams targeted, maybe not the dates yet, but certainly who we're going to likely be playing. So that's a lot of news for May 28th.
Until next time, guys, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, drop your comments, and share it with your basketball friends. Peace.